Good morning. Today is the 28th of June, and it is a very important date because my wife and I, we got married 23 years ago today in the North Nottinghamshire in England. So in this important date of our lives, I would like to read with you in Romans chapter 8, verses 22 and verse 22 and verse 23. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pain of childbirth, right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. So we've seen that the first groaning was actually the one of the creation that we saw yesterday and the day before. And today we are going to see that the children of God are groaning as well. And then later on, the Holy Spirit himself. So why are we groaning? We are groaning because we are waiting for the redemption of our bodies. We are waiting for the complete salvation that we are going to have one day when the glory of the children of God will be revealed. But as you probably realize, you live in a time when you are still waiting for something greater to come. But as we wait, he says here, we have the first fruits of the Spirit. We have this Holy Spirit in us that will act as the first fruit. We believe Paul was thinking, now he's using here an agriculture metaphor, and this agriculture metaphor probably comes from the feast of the first fruits. And we call it in Greek, we call this festival Pentecost, 50 days after Passover. And it was actually on that important Jewish festival that the Holy Spirit was given to God's people. And then every person that comes to Christ, that become a new creation, is filled with the Holy Spirit, is baptized in the Holy Spirit. There is no Christian, there is no disciple of Christ, there is no new creation, no new creature that is not filled with the Holy Spirit. And he's saying here that we have the first fruits of the Spirit. The first fruit, they announced what was coming next. And what was coming next was the big harvest. But before the big one, we had the first fruits. And we thanked God for that. And here he's saying that the Holy Spirit is the first fruits that we have received. And then he's later in another letter, he's going to use another metaphor, and that one is the one that comes from the commercial world. And he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 22, set his seal of ownership on us. God set his seal of ownership on us and put his spirit in our hearts as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. So before we could have the full commercial transaction, we had to give, a person had to give a deposit. And he's saying that the Holy Spirit is like that deposit. We're waiting for the whole thing to come, to arrive. But as we wait, we have given the Holy Spirit as a deposit. So one day, the whole commercial transaction will be done. But as we wait for that great day, God has given us the Holy Spirit as a deposit. And he says that this deposit set a seal of ownership in us. So we belong to God. We belong to God, and we are waiting for the final redemption of our bodies, of it's what it's going to be, our total salvation. Another image, another example that Paul is going to use is in the 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 5. And it says this, now the one who has fashioned us for this very purpose is God, who has given us the Spirit as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. Again, a deposit is being given here. And what is he talking about here? He's talking about the difference of being in a tent and then living in a palace. He says that now we are in a tent waiting for the final building for our lives. And that final building is in heaven. It's going to come to us. We are going to be there. Our body is going to be like a palace. But for the time being, we live in a tent. And when you live in a tent as a pilgrim, you are not yet in your final home. But he's saying that as we wait for that day, God has given us a deposit, and that's the Holy Spirit. And he's saying actually in this chapter 5 of this letter to the Corinthian church, he's saying verse 5, verse 4 of chapter 5, for why we are in this tent, we groan and are burdened, because we do not wish to be unclothed, but to be clothed instead. And we are going to be close of our heavenly dwelling. You see, we are groaning here as well, because we are waiting for the final redemption. Isn't that wonderful? What a wonderful subject for a wedding anniversary. Isn't that wonderful? The last text is in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4. God chose us to belong to Christ before the world was created. He chose us to be holy and without blame in his eyes. He loved us. What a beautiful text. Before the foundation of the world, before the foundation of the universe, God chose you. And he gave you his spirit when you became a new creation in him. But the project comes from before the foundation of the world. It should help you to go through this day, through this week, through this month, through this year, through this difficult time when the whole world is being under this terrible problem of this COVID-19. I pray that God, the Holy Spirit, will help you to understand that you are not on your own, that you are filled with the Holy Spirit, and it's the deposit that God gave you before the redemption, the final redemption of your body, of your soul, of your whole life. God bless you.